Hey everyone, Nick here. Welcome back to my channel. This video is going to be the latest in my Autistic explanation video series, a series that explains being autistic and various aspects of autism. Today's video is going to focus on something called sensory triggers. Now, in case you don't know, a sensory trigger is some form of sensory information like light or sound or texture, etc., that can potentially overwhelm an autistic person's nervous system and lead to distress. Now, not everyone has to be autistic in order to have sensory triggers. Some people who have ADHD and epilepsy are examples of non-autistic people who have sensory triggers. And sensory triggers, they can vary in how obvious they are, how subtle they are, and the degree to which they affect the person, and they can change over time. For example, my autistic sensory trigger back in the day was the sound of anything that made buzzing noises, like bees. They scared the hell out of me. If there was one bee, there may as well have been 1,000 bees around my head. I would cover my ears, run, and scream while I got back inside. It was not fun. Sensory triggers happen because autistic people's nervous systems react to sensory information differently than non-autistic people's. It's either thought that our nervous system just can't handle information the way that neurotypical people do, or that our nervous systems are absorbing more information and we're just being overwhelmed by the sheer amount of sensory information that we're receiving. Now, sensory triggers are often misunderstood by non-autistic people. Like, for example, let's say you're non-autistic and you're walking with your autistic friend who happens to have a sensory trigger towards the sound of a car horn, for example. And you're minding your own business and a car honks its horn, and all of a sudden you see your friend start like covering their ears or shaking or trying to cope. Now, from the non-autistic perspective, this might be seen as like, what's wrong with this person? Why are they being so dramatic? It's just a horn. But we're not trying to be dramatic. An autistic person who is reacting like that to a sensory trigger is not trying to be dramatic. It's just the way that their nervous system works. That's just what happens. Now, what's worse is when an autistic person tries to explain their sensory trigger to their non-autistic friends and they're misunderstood. Like, for example, let's say you're autistic and you happen to have a sensory trigger towards the sound of thunder, for example. And you explain this to your non-autistic friend, and your non-autistic friend says, oh yeah, I understand. I don't like thunder either. But that's not what a sensory trigger is. Disliking a certain type of sensory information is not the same thing as having a sensory trigger. Disliking something is like having a fly land on your face. I mean, it's mildly annoying, but you just, brush it off and you go about your day. While a sensory trigger is more like a punch to the face. Because not only do sensory triggers cause emotional distress, they can actually cause physical pain in some cases. So any non-autistic people watching this, please don't try to say, oh, sensory triggers are not a big deal, or don't try to say that you can relate to what an autistic person's going through when it comes to sensory triggers when you can't. It's just kind of rude. Now, luckily, sensory triggers can be managed. And in some cases, they may actually go away. Like, for example, I mentioned before that my sensory trigger when I was a kid was bees. But when I was like, I think 10 or 12, I was just tired of reacting this way towards bees. So I actually made myself stand underneath a hornet's nest in our backyard tree for like at least 20 minutes until I no longer had the urge to run away. And from that point on, I didn't have a problem with bees or any buzzing noises. But I should say that this isn't a guarantee. This might not work for every autistic person or any other person who has a sensory trigger. This is just my personal experience. It might not be the same for you or anyone you know. But they can also be managed in lots of other ways. For example, if you know that you are sensitive to the sounds of traffic, you can avoid this situation by taking routes that are less likely to have traffic jams. If you are sensitive to bright lights, you can wear sunglasses with tinted lenses so that so much light doesn't reach your eyes. And if you know that you're sensitive to, say, a certain texture of clothing, you can avoid that trigger by wearing clothing that is made of a different type of material. And with that being said, that's all for today's video. I hope you learned something new. Let me know if you liked it. If you know anyone who has sensory triggers, or if you have sensory triggers yourself, let me know in the comments below. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.